Hey YouTube, I am out picking beets. I have found the recipe that recreates the Polish pickled beets that I remember growing up with that my mom used to make. So if you are interested in making pickled beets with me, let's get these picked and I'll go inside and show you how easy they are to make. See you in the kitchen. Beets need a few steps before you can even get around to pickling them, but they're not super hard. What I am going to do is cut about 1.5 inches. Leave yourself about that much and trim the stem too. So you're trimming the root and the tops about that much, and we're going to give them a really good scrub under cool water with just a scrub brush. And then I've got a pot of water on the stove back here that is getting ready to boil. So I will do this and get some scrubbing done, and then we'll continue.
So we've got the water boiling, and we're going to just add the scrubbed beets right to the boiling water. And I'm going to bring that back to a boil and let that boil for probably about 10 minutes. While those are boiling, we'll go through the tools we're going to need. I'm going to be putting these in pint jars, and then we're going to be using non-reusable sealing lids and reusable rings. You will need a jar lifter to get them in and out of the boiling water, and a cannon funnel to put the liquid in. And then the only spices that are going to go in this, we're going to have a vinegar, sugar on water brine, basically, that's going to go on them, or syrup more like, and that is going to have cinnamon sticks and whole allspice berries in it. That is really the only two spices that are going to go in these, and they're so sweet and perfect. And these are just like I remember my mom making when I was a kid. And I don't know where she got the recipe, but her parents were Polish. Her grandparents only spoke Polish. If there's anyone out there that has Polish grandparents, let me know if this is the way that you remember them. And we're just going to take the strainer and pull them right out of the boiling water, give them a little bit of a drain, and put them in the ice bath for, like, I usually give them a couple of minutes. It's just supposed to help the skins come off easier.
These have cooled down in the ice water, and what you're going to do is take a paring knife and trim the stem end and the root end off. And the trick was that you're supposed to be able to kind of squeeze them and the skin should slip off, but I've almost never found that to be the case. So I just take the knife, and you're not really peeling as much as just sort of pulling the skin off, and it comes off pretty easily just like that. And I just put that in a bowl, and then that will go out to the chickens or the pigs if you have them, because they will love it. And just roll through all of these. And if they were big, like some of these that I'm going to be doing next, you could slice them at this point, because they're kind of cooked enough where you could slice. And then those just go in a little bowl waiting to go in the syrup, which we will make next. So this is kind of a multi-part pickling process. It's not a, like cucumbers, I think. There's a lot of steps to all of them, but this is one that seems more time consuming, because you have to pick them and then rinse them and then trim them and scrub them and then boil them and then trim them again and then peel them, and then you make pickles. So beets, but they're so good. They're worth it. All right, we've got all the beets sort of trimmed and waiting. I'm going to go ahead and make the syrup, and this is going to be 2 cups of water, and it calls for distilled water. I have literally never made these with distilled water in my entire life, so do that if you want. 2 cups of white vinegar, and this is small batch canning, so you can double this and make more if you need to, but make sure, I don't know if it's still a thing, somebody chime in if it's still a thing. Make sure it is 5% acidity. There was a thing a couple years ago where everyone was in a flap because they were finding vinegar at the store and it was like 4%. So we all freaked out and bought a bunch of the 5%, but it might not be a thing. 1.5 teaspoons of canning or pickling salt, 1/2 of a cinnamon stick, and 2 teaspoons of allspice berries. And that's all that's going in as far as flavor. And then we're going to put 4 cups of sugar. So if you're on a low sugar diet, look away now. I don't know about substitutions. Sorry, I don't substitute for these kind of things. And we're going to cook that over basically a medium-high heat, stirring it the whole time until the sugar dissolves. And then we'll increase the heat a little more, bring it up to a boil, and add the beets. Once the syrup comes up to a boil, you can go ahead and just add the beets that we trimmed and skinned. And we're going to just let those simmer for 5 minutes. All right, these have simmered for 5 minutes. And what I'm going to do is get out the little Chinese strainer again. This is where you're going to need your canning funnel and hot, clean jars. You can run them through the dishwasher and just take them out if the timing's right, or you could just get them hot. So we're going to scoop some out of the hot syrup and fill the jars to within a 1/2 inch headspace, like that. And we'll do one more. And then what we're going to do is strain the syrup to go in over these, so you're not putting a bunch of the allspice berries don't need to go in the jars necessarily. There's a couple I can see that are probably going to go in, but we're going to try and strain most of those out. And the nice thing about pickles, if you, well, the book that I use anyway, you don't have to have a boiling water bath. These are going to go in that big pot and process at in 185-degree water bath. So you don't have to necessarily have it a boiling hard, you know, water bath. And also be prepared to be wiping beet juice off of basically every surface of your kitchen. I use a strainer and just set it there carefully, and we're just going to put the syrup strained right over the beets and fill those jars up to 1/2 inch from the top. So I'm just making sure I don't have any of the allspice berries in there. We'll just top up. And there's a few, I can see a few floating in there, but that's not a problem. For good measure, take a butter knife and just I just go down in and kind of jostle them around just to make sure you're not trapping any air in there that will try to escape while they're processing. And then just take a damp paper towel and you just want to wipe around that rim and make sure that there's nothing there that will interrupt the seal on the jar. And I would hold these up, they're too hot. They're actually too hot to touch. So we're going to take our canning caps like this, and I usually get these warm in warm water. And also, sorry, my hands are so stained. When you work with beets, unless you're wearing gloves, you're going to have stains. Put your caps on, and they don't need to be warm necessarily. I'm learning that I don't need to have these in hot water while they're waiting to go in the jars. And then screw on your rings, and they don't need to be super duper tight. These are not being, you know, held on because you put them on so tight. You just want to go finger tight, and then just so they're just firm, but not like, you know, tighten them down super hard like that. Whew, those are hot. So we're going to grab with our jar lifter and just go over and put them in the water. And you want these to, once they're in the water, you want that water to be about 2 inches deeper than the top of the caps. And I'm going to add a little water to that. And we're going to watch that until it gets to 185. And when it does, I will set a timer for 35 minutes because of my altitude here. So your timing is going to be different depending on your altitude. So check that when you're looking at recipes and make sure you're doing the right amount of processing time. One little hack you can do if you can in hard water like I do, and you don't want to get that white buildup that gets on the jars after you take them out of boiling in hot, hard, minerally water like we have, add a splash of vinegar to your processing water. You can do this in your pressure canner and in your water bath like this, and then you won't have your jars come out of the water covered in that white sort of filmy, almost like a minerally dust that settles on them in hard water. Just a little kitchen trick for you. That is just processed for 35 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat and let these sit in the water for another 5 minutes just to sort of rest, and then we'll take them out. After these sat for 5 minutes, we're just going to take our jar lifter and carefully pull them straight up. And I just take them over and set them carefully on the counter to continue to cool down, and they will, you hear that pop, they'll seal as they cool. And then I'm going to do another batch of the beets you just saw that were big. I sliced them, so those are in the syrup waiting to go in jars. There's the sound you want to hear. That's the best sound in the world if you're a canner, because that means that you have done a good job. So there you have 3 perfect little jars of whole pickled beets. I hope this inspires you to try this easy recipe. There's a little bit of prep to get them ready, but they're so good. And if you have a Polish grandmother or a Polish mother in your background, you will probably recognize the flavor of these delicious little pickles. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.